Welcome back to the masterclass of Dr. Badler. Today I would like to introduce you our class 670 and 680s. Both classes belong to the group of the sleeve setting technologies. So first I would like to explain you what is the production flow of a complete sleeve and armhole processing and where you would find these two classes. So in the sleeve setting technology or in the processing, we would start with taping the armholes in the front and in the back parts. This we would do with our class 610. The next application in this area of processing armholes would be class 630. Here we would pre-ruffle the sleeve head. After these preparations, we would attach the sleeves on our class 650. So and after this, the two machines will be necessary to finish the whole armhole processing. That means first we would attach the body lining into the armhole with our class 680 and afterwards we would need the class 670 to attach the lining sleeves into the armhole. Okay, let me explain you a little bit about the machines. Class 680 is the successor of class 697-24155. This 697, a lot of people may know in the market. We have sold it very successful in the last couple of years, maybe centuries, but we have switched now to the class 680 as a successor, as I mentioned. This machine, class 680, will be used for sewing and simultaneously trimming of the body lining into the armhole in case of jackets, coats, blazers, so anywhere where you have lining in the jacket and you would like to attach it to the armhole. I have a small jacket here and I would like to show you where you find this application. So this is my ready attached sleeve, and this sleeve from inside we have the body lining, and this body lining in some application methods should not be loose like it is here now. So it should be attached into the sleeve armhole. So we would attach it and simultaneously we would cut the edges to have nice clean fabric edges. So afterwards we would use the class 670. The 670 is a successor of class 697-15155. This machine class we would use to attach the sleeve lining into the armhole. That would mean, I take my sample again. If the body lining is attached, I would take the sleeve lining and also attach it into my armhole. We will see it in the video later. For both machine classes, we have created a nice product video with all the explanations for you. I will not show you the video here complete now. What I have done for you is I have cut it in snippets, and these snippets I will use to explain the special parameters step by step. So I will jump here to the next page and continue the presentation. Okay, where is the difference between class 670 and 680? The difference, the main difference is the post. So that means the post on the 680 is located on the left side of the machine. Why? because we have on the right side an edge trimmer mounted to cut material. The 670, the post is mounted on the right side. So here we have mounted on the right side because for the application of attaching the sleeve lining into the armhole, the post is better positioned on the right side to have a better handling process. Now I would like to show you the application. Again, class 680 post is left with an edge trimmer, and the application would look like this. The operator would stitch from inside the sleeve, and we would attach the body lining which is laying on the bottom side. So that means we are stitching all around and attaching the body lining into the armhole. Simultaneously, we are cutting the edges, the fabric extensions which are not required. For example, a little bit the shoulder pad, a little bit maybe the lining or any fabric extension which is there. Okay, good. That was the application of 680. Now coming to the class 670 and the application behind. So here we are attaching the sleeve lining. So that means, I will show you the video. After using the 680, we would use the 670 and we would attach the sleeve lining into the armhole. In this case, the sleeve lining is laying on the top and we are attaching it into the sleeve armhole. Important is here, it's laying on the top, and as you can see here, the operator is adding some fullness into the lining to have a nice relaxed attached sleeve into the armhole. Okay, other applications on the 680 would be, for example, attaching the shoulder pad into the armhole, including the body lining or separately. So some people attach it together, some make it separately. So the best and the better way for the quality and handling wise would be attaching the shoulder pad first, afterwards the body lining and trim the shoulder pad, as you can see here in the picture. Another application would be, there are some customers, they do not want to use a lock stitch in the area of attaching the body lining. And for this, there are customers, they use only in the bottom part of the sleeve open, or the sleeve, of the sleeve opening. We are attaching it only on the bottom part. Or others, they are attaching only the fish with this machine in the upper part. So everything would be possible. What is also available, or what it could be also used the machine for, is attaching the shoulder pad, and here I do have a nice video for your explanation. So the operator here is just attaching the shoulder pad on the bottom, and it's attaching only in the area of the shoulder pad. That's all. Left and right side. And now you can imagine we have volume in the shoulder pad, and we want to keep the volume of the shoulder pad, and therefore this machine has some very important features which I will explain in the next steps. But first let's finish the application part. So If I talk about the performance of the class 680, if I would attach the body lining and trim simultaneously, I could do approximately 200 to 230 jackets in 8 hours working time. If I would attach the body lining only in the lower area of the jacket sleeve, there I would have maybe up to 250 jackets in 8 hours working time. If I would like to attach the fish only, we are talking about 400 to 460 pairs, means jackets in 8 hours working time. Or if I attach the shoulder pad, we are talking about 230 to 290 jackets in 8 hours working time. This always depends on the style of the shoulder pad or the style of the fish and the style how I would attach it. But this is an approximate performance. Now coming to the application of class 670. This 670, we have learned that we have to attach, or we will attach the sleeve lining into the armhole. I will show the video again. So again, we have the lining on top and the operator is stitching the sleeve lining into the sleeve armhole. What for I could also use this machine is attaching the sleeve lining in the lower area. Same like on the other 680 machine, I could also do attaching the part only in some areas, because sometimes customers would like to use a blind stitch on the top area of the sleeve. Would be also possible, of course. And attaching the fish or the shoulder pad without cutting would be possible. Performance here. If I would attach the sleeve lining into the armhole, I could do approximately 160 to 200 jackets in 8 hours working time. If I attach only the lower part of the jacket, I can do maybe 200 to 250 jackets. And if I attach the fish only, which is around 400 to 460. Let me now explain you where are the seams located in the jacket. So, if the black line here shows my fabric edge, the next closest seam would be attaching the body lining. So that means the 680 body lining attaching would be the best solution, the best recommendation. 8 mm seam margin, that means cutter to the needle, 8 mm seam margin, or a little smaller of 6.4 mm. But we are also offering 10 mm in case you have larger seam margins than 10 mm closing seams. On class 670, the seam margin in general should be around 8-9 mm from the fabric edge, because we have attached the sleeve before, and this sleeve setting was done most probably by 10 mm margin. So that means 680 and 670 should be less than 10 mm, because very important, it should be absolutely invisible seam from outside the jacket, which I would like to show you here on my sample. Not stitched yet, but what I want to show is, so the outer seam here is made by the 650. So that means all the other seams need to be inside the seam margin, because I do not want to have it visible from outside on the jacket. Now coming to technical features which are very important for this application. The machine is equipped with a keypad with six keys and a favorite button. That means we have 6 keys here, and this is my favorite button. These 6 keys are functions like fullness, activating fullness on the top layer of material. This would be, if we remember the video, lining on the top means attaching the sleeve lining. Or fullness on the bottom, this is the second button here. Activating this means I'm doing the application of attaching the body lining into the armhole. The third button here is second stroke, means I have one stroke for thin area of my sleeve area. So that means 2 or 3 layers of material. As soon as I reach the area of the shoulder pad, I have to have a higher stroke on my sewing foot to make sure that I can easily climb over my shoulder pad. The next button here, the fourth one, is for a second stitch length. In the area of the sleeve, we have material just 2 or 3 layers, but in the top area we have the shoulder pad. In the area of the shoulder pad, it is always better to use larger seam or stitch lengths. To have less stitches means we are less decreasing the volume of the shoulder pad. So that means we are using a normal stitch length wherever I am in the sleeve without the shoulder pad. And in the area of the shoulder pad, I am activating a second stitch length to stitch less through the shoulder pad. So button number 5 is an automatic stitch loosening device for keeping loose stitches again in the shoulder pad area. So that means in the area where we do not have a shoulder pad, I have a normal tight stitch thread tension. And in the area where I have the shoulder pad, where I want to keep the volume of the shoulder pad high, I lose the stitch while stitching. That means I get some more thread inside the stitch to keep the volume of the shoulder pad perfectly. And on class 680, we have the edge trimmer, which can be activated or deactivated, of course, to cut fabric edges, maybe shoulder pad extensions, whatever is necessary. The favorite key button is for a special function like, for example, I am stitching and I need one function regularly activated or deactivated. Then I can put one of the 6 functions here onto this favorite button. Very simple. You do see the blue screws here below the buttons, and these are mounted now. The position is horizontal. As soon as you turn one of the screws in vertical direction, this function will be activated by this favorite button. Only one function can be activated there, so please select and choose the right one. Okay, so changing the fullness from top to bottom, I have explained already. The first 2 buttons are for fullness on the top or on the bottom, depending on the application. So if I attach the body lining, I need fullness on the bottom because the lining is laying here on the bottom side while stitching. If I attach the sleeve lining is laying on top. We have seen it in the video. So that means I have to activate the lining on the top. how to adjust the value of fullness. You have a mechanical adjustment on the machine base plate for top and bottom fullness, and it is a mechanical setting, just turning, increasing or decreasing the fullness value. What else we do have as a special parameter or feature on the machine? We do have a second foot stroke, I mentioned already, in combination with a second stitch length. So the second foot stroke I can adjust here on the machine head. I have two adjustments, one for the normal stroke, one for the second one. I have a small video here. So you see here, now in the area where I do not have any thick material, means shoulder pad, I have a normal stroke, and in the area where I have shoulder pad, I have a higher stroke. So that is the climbing effect of moving over the shoulder pad, so that's why it's necessary to use this second stroke. Coming now to the second stitch length. Again, I repeat, we have normal stitch lengths in the area where we do not have shoulder pads. That means all the area around the sleeve I can stitch with a normal stitch length. In the area of the shoulder pad, I want to stitch less through the shoulder pad to keep the volume of the shoulder pad, and that's why I switch to a larger stitch length. Stitch length, maximum stitch length 6 mm or 9 mm are available. This is depending on the sewing equipment. I will explain and show this later. What else we are offering on the machine? We are offering a second thread tension. Means in the area where I do not have the shoulder pad, I want to have a nice tight thread tension. But in the shoulder pad area, I am releasing the second thread tension, so I get a looser thread tension to have again more volume in the shoulder pad. Now coming to the stitch loosening device. The stitch loosening device, you can see here, this is this stitch loosening finger. So this stitch loosening finger I can activate or deactivate, and should be only activated in the area again of the shoulder pad. Because what's happening here? While stitching, the finger will move from left to right side of the needle. Keep the thread on this finger to make sure that we pull the thread loose, because we remember the thread tension now is a little looser, and now we get more thread volume inside the stitch to keep the volume of the thread, the volume of the shoulder pad, sorry. I have a small video here which shows this application nicely, I would say. Okay, so this is the stitch loosening finger. It's positioned only on the right side. In case the material is getting thicker, we are activating this and stitching, keeping the stitch on this finger. So you can see here, the stitch is very nice loose if I want, and we keep the volume of the shoulder pad. In combination with this, we do have a programmable automatic material thickness detection. So as soon as I am stitching in the normal area of material, the finger is not activated, and as soon as I reach the shoulder pad, the thickness will be increased, and that means we are activating this special stitch loosening device. It can be activated manually, that means just by button or knee switch, or I can use a fully automatic function on the machine. I will show this later. Okay, good. To activate it fully automatic, we are offering 3 different modes. That means on the control panel on the machine, we are having a special function where we have an F button for function, special function, and if the light is not on, that means the stitch loosening device is activated in combination with the second thread tension. If the light is on, then the stitch loosening device with second thread tension plus the second stitch length is activated. And last but not least, the third mode, if the light is blinking, then I have the stitch loosening device, of course, second thread tension, second stitch length and the foot stroke. So all possible functions are activated. This is the control panel we are using on the machine, and if I am activating the automatic function, I have the possibility for adjusting my material thickness recognition. What does this mean? In this screen here you have 2 values. This is the value which I have programmed when the material thickness detection should be activated, means the stitch loosening device should be activated. On the right side, this is my actual value of the thickness detection. That means if I program be activated by 1.3 millimeter centimeter thickness, then it will be activated. If I reach, of course, after 1.3, it's activated until I have another value. Okay, good. So then we are offering different sewing equipments. For 680, I have E1 in 6 millimeter stitch length and 6 millimeter cutting margin, 6 millimeter stitch length, 8 millimeter cutting margin, 6 millimeter stitch length, 10 millimeter margin. And then I do have a sewing equipment, E1 9-5 means 9 millimeter maximum stitch length with 6, 8 or 10 millimeter cutting margin. For 670 we don't have cutting margin, so that means we have only 2 equipments, one for maximum 6 millimeter stitch length and one for maximum 9 millimeter stitch length. My suggestion would be take always the 9 millimeter stitch length because you can do 6 millimeter and more. But with 6 millimeter it's limited by 6 millimeter maximum. The machine is equipped with a suction device as an optional equipment, means the cutted waste will be taken away by the suction device, so you have always a nice clean machine table. If you do not have this, the operator has the hassle to take this material always out, plus the cutted material wastage might be getting into your seam. So my recommendation is always take the suction device to get a much better sewing result too, because it's clean and no waste into the seam. So the machine is equipped with an automatic bobbin winder, and here we have a winding edge. What does it mean? You know it from standard machines. If you wind the bobbin, the first beginning of the thread is always somewhere but not nicely aligned into the winding process. Here we are aligning the thread perfectly, the thread beginning, to have a nice clean winding. We are using a large vertical hook here, which has a larger bobbin of a diameter 26 millimeter, which is, compared to the old version of the 697, which had only 22 millimeter, we have 60% higher bobbin capacity, depending of course on the thread thickness. The machine has the possibility to get an optional central oil lubrication system. So that means we mount here a light which give a signal in case the oil level is dropping too low. Safety functions are on the machine here, like a safety clutch to protect the sewing equipment in case some threads are inside the machine and the thread impact will block maybe the machine. To avoid any damage, we have here this safety clutch. The stand set we are offering in two versions. You could have a normal stand set with just the normal standard table, or you get an additional table, this optional ergonomical shaped tabletop, which gives you a lower space from the sewing area to load the jacket on the left side. So this is a little bit more comfortable because then the distance is not too long and is not always pulling on the material. Of course, we are also offering transport roller sets in case you have to move the machine very often inside the production. So, last but not least, here is a small information for you. We do have a product page on our website. Please visit it for class 670 and 680. And of course, our product video, please use this QR code to maybe get some more information on this machine. So, and now I would like to invite you to come with me to the machine to see the practical part. First, I will explain you the features here on the machine, and afterwards I will explain you and show you again the seams on my mannequin over there. Okay, so this now is the class 680, means the post is on the left side, the edge trimmer is here located on the right side. The machine is equipped with a stitch loosening device. This is the finger for the stitch loosening device, and this is the material height detection, so recognizing the thickness of material. The machine is equipped with a second thread tension, again for the volume of the shoulder pad, 2 stroke adjustments for the sewing foot, and 2 stitch lengths, again for a loose and long stitch lengths in the shoulder pad. The machine is equipped with these 6 buttons, which I explained already. Fullness on the top, fullness on the bottom, second stroke activation, second stitch length activation, the stitch loosening finger, and the activation of the edge trimmer. In case I would like to use my favorite button here, I could use one of these functions and put it to this favorite button. So at the moment my screws are all mounted horizontal, and I explained I have to do one of these vertical and then I can use my favorite button. So at the moment without any function, and if I want to change it, for example, I would like to use the knife, the edge trimmer. Now I would adjust and activate my edge trimmer. Or if I would use something else, let's say the fullness on the bottom, activated fullness on the bottom. Here I have my control panel, and on this control panel I have special functions for the stitch loosening device and the automatic functions of second stitch length, second foot stroke and second thread tension. So the activation is in 3 modes. If on this button F there is no light, means only the stitch loosening device and the thread tension is activated. If the light now is active, means the stitch loosening device, the thread tension and the second stitch length is activated. If the light is blinking, stitch loosening device, second thread tension, stitch length, second stitch length and second foot stroke is activated. So depending on what you need on your shoulder pad, there you can activate it accordingly. Now I have activated this function, this automatic function, because I can switch manually by knee switch the function on off, or I can activate it with an automatic stitching mode. In this case I have to activate my stitch loosening device, and then the screen here on my control panel changes to 2 numbers. So there is a plus 0.6 in this case, so that means this is my first value of the thickness of my shoulder pad. So what I would do is, in case I would start stitching, I would have my body lining here, I have my shoulder pad in between, and I have my jacket. To make sure that the machine is activating the functions on the right point, we have to measure the thickness of material by loading it underneath the sewing foot. So let's say the long stitch length should be activated on this point here. This point is now measuring the material thickness and showing me here the value. The value here is 0.6 millimeter, means we start stitching with normal stitch length, and as soon as the thickness of material arrives 0.6, all the functions which I have activated will be activated, switched on. So, and then I have to measure the end of the seam, and the end of the seam should be always, value-wise, less than the first seam, the first value. Otherwise, the machine gets confused. Let's say I would say the start of the activation of the function is 0.6, and at the end I add 0.8, means if we start stitching 0.6, we reach very short time 0.8 and it will be deactivated. So the second value has to be smaller than the first value. Means plus is for seam beginning, minus is for seam end. So for seam end, I would activate here now 0.5 instead of 0.6. So that means it will be deactivated if we have a smaller value of 0.5. While stitching, the actual value will be shown here on the right side. On the left side, it shows when the functions will be activated or deactivated. I will show you now. So the blinking functions means all functions will be on. That means stitch loosening device, thread tension, second foot stroke and second stitch length. I will start stitching now. So, and we see this is the value of 0.4 millimeter thickness. So that means here, and as soon as I will reach now 0.6, you will hear that the functions will be switched on. Now you have heard the click, and now functions are on. And if you see here now, the stitch loosening device is keeping the stitches. We have long stitch lengths. We have a loose thread tension and a second foot stroke. As soon as I reach now the end of the shoulder pad, we come to a value of 0.5, and then we will continue normal stitching. I will show you the sewing result now. So you see here a loose thread tension. You will see here the long stitches, 6 millimeter stitches, compared to 3 millimeter stitches in seam beginning and end. And while stitching, you could see the different movements of the sewing foot. So these are the functions you could activate while stitching. And the edge trimmer can be easily activated by using the switch here. And we are cutting fabric extensions which are not required. Okay, a nice clean cut from both sides, so there is no material extension if I don't want. Now I will show you this on a jacket as an example. So I have here my jacket. The body lining is loose. I have attached already the sleeve. Everything is attached. And now we are attaching on the 680 the body lining. Important is on the 680, as I mentioned before, we are loading the body lining on the bottom side and we are activating the fullness on the bottom. And now I'm matching here the notches and start stitching with simultaneously edge trimming. Okay, so now I have attached the body lining to the front jacket. Afterwards, on the 670, I would now attach the sleeve lining into the armhole. Unfortunately, I do have only the 680 here, but I think the system is clear. Okay, so, and now I would like to show you this on my mannequin. So here you can see the body lining is attached into the armhole. Afterwards, we would attach the sleeve lining into the armhole. It would be attached like this all around. And the ready sample would look like this afterwards. So this was the presentation of class 680 and 670 today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We are looking forward to see you at our next masterclass. Thank you very much.